My heart especially aches for our trans children. While the drag ban bill may have been blocked, the trans youth healthcare ban has gone into effect here in Texas, preventing access to hormone blockers that are medically necessary for more than just trans youth. Gender affirming care is life-saving. Access to healthcare is a basic human right. These policies disproportionately affect LGBTQIA+ youth and people of color. We have a duty to protect our most marginalized communities. Trans kids deserve to grow into healthy adults.
I identified myself as transgender for years, and when I started to feel confused and ashamed about my developing body, I asked everyone in my life to call me by a new name and use male pronouns to refer to me. I went through a social transition from female to male. Everyone in my life immediately affirmed my new identity. The constant affirmation, both active and passive, solidified me in my transgender identity. No one meant to lock me into an identity that would later leave me broken, ashamed, and more confused than before. They were really all just being nice. But the social transition eventually wasn't enough, and I soon felt I needed to take testosterone. And when that wasn't enough, I had a double mastectomy. And when that still wasn't enough, I had a total hysterectomy, including the removal of my uterus, cervix, fallopian tubes, and both ovaries. There's no point of contentment during a gender transition. We get fleeting moments of euphoria, but ultimately one step leads straight into the next. And I thought that in the end I could really become a man, but all I became was a mutilated and abused version of my old self. Social transition is a big deal, and we're lying when we say that any of this is reversible.
Now, as you heard from the woman, yes, that was a biological woman, the affirmation solidified the new identity she had taken on. And with this affirmation now being policy, meaning gender-neutral restrooms and language, all this was designed to allow for people to go further, to get that next surgery, and to push for more policy. But in the end, it's the same story. Regret with no chance to truly turn back, and the unknowing or knowing circumstance of becoming a medical patient for the rest of your life.
Years ago, I got gender reaffirming surgery. Here's honest update. Do I regret it? Short answer is yes. Don't get me wrong, I got it done twice. It looks Barbie. Why do I regret it? Well, because I will never be able to live a normal life. After the surgery, you have to start dilating to keep the space they gave you. You start from doing it 4 times a day to once a week for the rest of your life. I was fine with that. See, the problem is I had major complications, and now for some reason I need to do it every single fucking day. Now, obviously, I've had relations, and girls, we all know, guys don't know what to do. So it's not really worth it to me. The problem is I cannot stop. If I stop, it's going to close up and create a bubble, and that bubble could literally create an infection that could... The two options here are I dilate for the rest of my life, or I get it removed surgically. Surgery goes for $70,000, and I don't want to go through that again, so I guess I'm dilating.
Now, some of you may be wondering about dilating. What exactly is it? So don't worry, I'll have a clip for you explaining the process and what it is and how it works. Check it out.
Happy Pride Month, everyone. I got a lot of questions about dilation, so I would love to talk about dilation today. Dilation is when you dilate and stick a instrument into the new canal to maintain the shape and depth of your new orifice. So right after I had my gender affirming surgery, I was required to dilate 3 times a day for 15 minutes. After about 6 months, I believe I was able to go down to twice a day for 15 minutes. And then after a year, it's once a day, every day for 15 minutes. Now, after 7 years, though, I get very lazy with it, and I go like months without dilating, and I'm okay. I don't recommend doing that, but it's not like I have had an issue with it. I was given 3 sets of dilators, a small, a medium, and a large. They're all the same height, but their width is different. On the dilators, there are markers, so you can see how much depth you're either losing or gaining or maintaining. So if I ever go too long without dilating, like we're talking a couple months, all I have to do is go down a dilator size, dilate with that for like a day or 2, and then I bounce right back to where I was. I want to talk about this though. Do you have to dilate if you are consistently active making boom boom? No, you don't. You can either do one or the other.
For the first time in history, a marginalized group has a huge dollar sign on the top of their head. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States promoting that.
And what?
That's a phalloplasty. That's a bottom surgery. We have 5 children's hospitals in the United States telling girls that they can be boys at $70,000 a pop in a surgery that has a 67% complication rate. That will kill me from infection, that I can't sue on. We're butchering a generation of children because nobody's willing to talk about anything. I have 3 kids. At the age that they're doing this to kids. I'm not transphobic. I love my kids, and I love other people's kids, and you should too. This is wrong on so many levels.
I could just very harshly say to my young pre-testosterone but trans-identifying self, don't do any of this, don't go on T, don't get surgery, don't even change your name, just stop.
I lived 8 years as Laura Jensen until I woke up and realized that it was totally insane to live this out.
I 100% feel like I was part of some cruel medical and social experiment.
I've now been living as a woman for 28 years and I fully regret this.
I can't believe this happened. I ruined my life.
Over the past decade, there has been as high as a 4,000% increase in children being referred to so-called gender clinics across the United States. I was one of these children.
My pronouns aren't preferred, they are mandatory.
Okay, how the fuck am I supposed to know when I'm only meeting someone on the go and I'm not allowed to guess by how they look or how they dress or by what they got that's going on below? See, on this topic I'm a little gray. When meeting someone new, what do I say? 'Cause if I have to start our talk asking if you have a cock, then you're not my kind of person anyway. Just one more little thing before I'm gone. Respect is earned, it's not demanded in a song. If you want to be a she or a they, a zer, a z, good for you, but you can't make me play along.
The second was an observation that I had that every single child or adolescent who was truly blocked at Tanner stage 2 has never experienced orgasm. I mean, it's really about 0. These are just assigned male at birth, so trans feminine, and it's because they never in their lives are exposed to testosterone. That doesn't change. So blockers prevent the rise of testosterone, and they don't really go on testosterone at or around surgery or into adulthood. And so we don't know. They're going to have this sensation. There's no question about that. But are they going to be able to achieve sexual satisfaction? It's important in relationships. And I know that from my work with female genital mutilation survivors, that the lack of being able to be intimate with a partner is very important. And so this is what really raised the red flag for me, is to say, look, we need to have our eyes open about it. I think it's been beneficial talking about it. I know Joe and many others have reported to me, they've changed their approach a little bit in their informed consent models, and that we're talking about masturbation now. We're talking about, okay, that's an area of the body that's got very dysphoric for you, but you know what? It's all a penis is just a large clitoris. I mean, it's all the same material. It really.
As you can see, there is no real metric when it comes to diagnosis because it's all subject to feeling. And clearly, there is a huge incentive for doctors performing these surgeries.
It was scarily easy to do because I had just called a therapist and I had scheduled one appointment, for like a 30-minute session to talk about it. And I essentially walked in, I said, I identify as transgender and I want to get top surgery. And we chatted for a bit, maybe for half an hour. And at the end of the session, she wrote me an approval letter to send to my insurance. And then I got approved just like that.
When you first started, you went in, you said to Planned Parenthood, they gave you testosterone immediately.
Yeah, I essentially just made a phone call and said, I want to transition. And it was immediately given. I got a prescription and went to pick it up like a week later.
Did they ask you questions? Did they do any psychological testing? Did they ask you why? What was your motive?
It was completely self-diagnosed.
You said, I want testosterone, they gave it to you.
Yeah, I had confused, because I had become uncomfortable with how society had seen me as a woman sexually. So I didn't actually have gender dysphoria. I had just confused myself into thinking that I did.
While some people may be accepting, it's many, almost to the point of it being rare, to find people who truly know the full extent and cost of the pros and cons of transitioning. The way all of this is done and pushed onto society, it's clear that this is a social experiment and has changed the moral fabric of our society and physically changed many of the people in it.
It was scarily easy to do because I had just called a therapist and I had scheduled one appointment, for like a 30-minute session to talk about it. And I essentially walked in, I said, I identify as transgender and I want to get top surgery. And we chatted for a bit, maybe for half an hour. And at the end of the session, she wrote me an approval letter to send to my insurance. And then I got approved.
I know I constantly get on the internet and rave about positive things about my transition, but honestly, there have been some negative and some things that I regret. And you may not agree with some of the things that I regret as a trans person if you're trans, but these are my opinions. Number one regret that I have is not saving my swimmers. I was so young when I started transitioning. I was only 19 years old and I wasn't thinking far enough ahead into the future about kids, and I want to be a mom one day. Just a lesson learned, unfortunately, and I feel like younger generation needs to kind of think of these things now instead of later on. Next regret is honestly just a vanity thing, but I wish I went bigger. So everyone always says like go bigger than what you think, and at the time I feel like I was satisfied, and then I went and got a BBL, and my body is a lot more curvy now, and I feel like I want my top half a little bit bigger, and now I'm considering going in for another surgery just so I can like them a little bit better. So my little tidbit of advice is go a little bit bigger than what you think you want.
And clear the closing doors, please.